Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, and we have to talk about what happened yesterday. Lazio Empoli, another incredible match, another astonishing performance, astonishing result, I would say. Alistair McKenzie, welcome back to Rome. Nice weather, right? It's pouring down here today in Rome. Just to welcome you back to Italy. Um, Unbelievable what happened yesterday. Lazio was up 2-0, and in the last 10 minutes, Empoli was able to equalize. We were talking before, similar to Lecce's match. Well, I don't agree that much. And Sarri, in the press conference after the match, said that Lazio played well and didn't deserve to lose. So I think there are plenty of things to talk about. But let's start from today, 9th January 2023. Happy birthday, Lazio.
Yeah, I like that. Starting with a nice positive note. 123rd birthday. I was quite impressed actually last night that after such a disappointing result and in pouring rain, it was still Piazza della Libertà was still full of fans, seemingly, who were going along to celebrate as they always do every year. So good effort to all of them. And yeah, happy birthday, Lazio. As we know, the oldest team in the capital by a distance, the first club of Rome.
Yeah, not the perfect way to celebrate. And again, yesterday I tweeted before the match, Lazio need to win for Sinisa. Lazio will remember Sinisa Mihajlovic for all the home matches in January. This one was the first. And I was hoping for a better performance, and it didn't plan out, which is annoying because, again, Curvanor was closed. We already talked about that. But the atmosphere before the match, before the kickoff, was unbelievable. Lazio played a video about Sinisa Mihajlovic with Lazio in Tribuna d'Onore. There were all Lazio shirt wear from Sinisa Mihajlovic. So, you know, uh, I wanted that Lazio team played for Sinisa, and things didn't work out. It was funny because at a certain point there was a free kick close to the Empoli's penalty box, and from the Distinti, because Curva was close, a chant came out saying that if Sinisa kicks it, it's goal. That was one of the chant we used to sing for Sinisa. So yeah, one of the best players Lazio ever had, one of the most important players Lazio ever had, and it's a shame that we didn't celebrate, we didn't remember him with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to see the club honouring him with a big banner of Sinisa Mihajlovic on the Curva d'Or while it was closed, obviously, as well yesterday. And I mentioned too, I think, for Gianluca Vialli, because that was another really sad piece of news last week. Not a Lazio, ex-Lazio player, of course, but I think everyone will agree, a very inspiring figure, fantastic player in his days, and then obviously part of Italy's Euro win, and very inspiring in the way he tackled his cancer battle as well. So it's another sad loss. Moving on to the game, I think for 87 minutes, Lazio did honour Sinisa Mihajlovic very well with the performance. I want to get to you quickly on this because it was quite interesting what you were saying. And I think it's probably what a lot of people will feel in retrospect. You said yesterday, this was before we came on air, you said that yesterday you were very emotional and angry. And if we'd done a podcast then, you would have been scathing about Lazio's performance. But you've watched it back and you feel differently now. So tell me why.
Well, I was so upset after the match. Then I went home, listened to Sari, who said we had a great performance. It's very hard to understand why we didn't win. So I said, well, I had a different feeling. So I watched the match, and Lazio had so many chances, Alistair, so many chances, and we didn't score. We went ahead immediately, but after that, Milinkovic Savic had a couple of chances. Ciro Immobile wasted a couple of good chances. Zaccagni made a couple of good movement and didn't finish it. We hit the post with Milinkovic Savic. And if you go and watch the match and check the stats, you see that Empoli had only 2 shots on target. And those are the 2 goals. Empoli shot 3 times on goal, one that went above the crossbar, and then the 2 goals. So yes, really, until I don't want to say that Lazio played great football, that dominated and was playing Sarri ball, but we created so many chances that it's really hard to understand how we didn't win this match. And the 2 goals from Empoli all came from incredible mistakes. We were 2-0 up, corner kick for us, and I don't know why everybody was in the box. We should have kept 1, 2 defenders back because we're 2-0 ahead. We don't need to score another one. We just need to avoid them to score. Instead, Ciro Immobile has a chance. I don't know why he doesn't shoot immediately. He loses the ball. There's Romagnoli close to Ciro Immobile. After dribble passing Romagnoli, there's no one there. And Empoli goes on a counter-attack with 1, 2 players more than Lazio. The second goal, it's corner kick for Empoli. And there's one close to the flag and no one's marking him. Pedro's dash very late. He put the ball in the box. Felipe Anderson deflected, and there are 3 Empoli players outside the box, all alone, with a chance to stop, control the ball, and kick in the goal. So 2 incredible mistakes for a football team in Serie A.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you say there about the corner, it reminds me of, I think it was Pep Guardiola, while he was at Barcelona, said that essentially attacking corners are more of a threat to your own team than an opportunity for your own team, because it's a perfect chance for teams to counterattack. So he would always just use them as a way to recycle possession. Reminded me a bit of that last night. I mean, on the other hand, like you say, there was no suggestion really at that point. I think Caputo had one very good chance actually that he missed. But other than that, I don't think there had been much suggestion in this match that Empoli were capable of launching this kind of comeback. But I mean, I get where you're coming from. I do think Lazio were very good for those 87 minutes. But a football match doesn't last 87 minutes, and this is the issue. Sarri spoke afterwards about the fact that this team seems to have limits to its mental capacity, and I thought that was quite an interesting way of putting it. You know, they're only really capable of so much mentally, almost like this is it's a concentration issue. Like this team can't maintain a certain level of focus and application for that length of time as a group for that many games in a row. And I think you have to say he's kind of hit the nail on the head there, because there is no other possible real reason for this having happened. Yeah, you could perhaps blame Sarri for that first goal and not being more cautious on the corner or whatever, but it is a level of mental breakdown that has led to this. There's no other way you really throw away 2 goals to a team that's previously not created much in the space of 6 minutes at the end. And I would add that the other issue now is that this has been such a talking point for so long. If we look all the way back to Simone Inzaghi's time, those famous blackouts against Inter in the Champions League decider, against Salzburg in the Europa League quarterfinal, you know, we're talking, 6-7 years ago now that these things, and it's been a constant talking point ever since. And as a result of that, and you were at the ground yesterday, I wasn't, but I feel like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that has produced a nervousness in these situations that will come from the crowd. And I've seen it, I've felt it before at games where the fans don't have much faith in the team that they can hold on in these positions. Once Empoli pulled that goal back and they won that corner, I'm immediately thinking the worst. And I think that nervousness can perhaps project itself to the players a little bit as well. I mean, did you feel that? I can imagine, knowing how you feel watching Lazio, I can imagine you weren't exactly completely confident in the final stoppage time that Lazio were going to hold on.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, if this happens every time, how can you be confident, right? This is not the
Exactly.
first time that Lazio goes ahead and don't win the match. I mean, against Lecce, we were able to lose it, but we did the same against Salernitana. So it's not a surprise. And these mistakes are incredible. I mean, I cannot understand that a Serie A match team can do this type of mistakes. Uh, the crowd was silent, but I don't think that that had an impact on the players. I think these players have some issues, and I know a lot of our listener are starting to complaining about Maurizio Sarri. Again, I don't think it's Sarri's fault, but the substitution, Alistair, yesterday didn't convince me again. Um, Bringing in Basic, bringing in Vecino instead of Cataldi weren't the right solution, and we saw it. I thought Marcos Antonio would have been a better option than Vecino playing in front of our defense. And I don't know. After 1 year and a half, I think Basic hasn't proved to be worthy to be a Lazio player. So I understand we don't have other option, but I would give a go to Marcos Antonio rather than Toma Basic. I thought when Basic came in, Lazio pretty much disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the blame game, is only natural. It's always a symptom of a bad result is that people will look for who or what to blame. And Sarri is the coach. The coach is always the number one target when it comes to these things. I don't necessarily agree that the mentality issue is Sarri's fault. Um, Perhaps, like I said a few days ago, he could be doing more to try and fix the problem. I don't know because I'm not really sure how you can fix this problem very easily. And some of the comments we had on Twitter afterwards are saying things like, start again, scrap the team and rebuild. And I just think that kind of mentality is something that costs. That's not something that you can just build. It comes from experience. It comes from winning things. It comes from time, and I don't think Sarri can do that much to in the short term to immediately fix that, as Inzaghi failed to during his time as well. But people will also say, there are limits to this squad. Let's be realistic. We're talking about Lazio here. We don't have the same expectations and ambitions as Juventus do because of the budget, because of what's been invested in this team, whatever. And that's fair enough. But when you look at the raw facts here, we've picked up 2 points from games against Sampdoria, Lecce, Salernitana, and Empoli. And if you're going to pick up 2 points from 12 against that level of opposition, you're going to really struggle to fulfill your ambitions, and that perhaps is something that can be blamed on the coach. And so many of these, all four. The reason I pick out those 4 games is that all of them Lazio have been ahead at halftime, and this is where I think Sarri's picking up on this mental limit thing. Is that Lazio are able to start games well, control games for a long time, but they don't have that 90 minutes capacity. So
Yeah,
that's probably only going to get harder as the season goes on as well, because we've got a hell of a lot of games coming up.
and Alistair, it's concerning because last year in the second part of the season, Lazio was able to win all these type of matches, right? Second part of the season, Lazio was winning against lower league team and struggling against the big one. So I don't think we are at the same level with Milan, Inter, and Juventus. And if now we don't even win against the small teams, then it's going to be tough to not finish in the top 4, but finish in the top 7, I think, if we continue like that. And this is a very concerning point. And yep.
Well, I was going to come on to that, the top four. I mean, the way I look at it is you probably cannot afford to drop that many points against those kind of teams in the course of a season and
Yeah.
and finish in the top four. But this season is so weird. There is a lot of inconsistency among that top seven, and we're not even halfway through it yet. And the gap to the top four is only 3 points. So I think you can make this argument either way. It's quite easy at this point to just completely give up hope and say it's gone. But thanks to results in big games so far, beating Inter, beating Roma, we are still in this. Like the top four is still there to be taken. But it just will require that kind of fundamental shift in mentality for the second half of the season. So how are you feeling when it comes to the top four race and the chances of actually seeing that through?
Well, yeah, you're right. I don't think nobody thought that Inter would have draw against Monza, especially like that last minute. Again, watching Milan Roma, nobody thought that Milan would have drawn that match. So there are some surprising results. On the other hand, we have to say that 3 months ago, Juventus seemed in big trouble. Now they're second, 8 wins in a row, and they are flying. So, do you think we're going to be ahead of Juventus at the end of the season? I don't think about it. And Inter will drop points, but I think overall they will be ahead of Lazio. So we need to do something better. And one of the most concerning point, Alistair, is Milinkovic Savic performance. We talked about it already, but even against Empoli, his performance was below average. He made a couple of stupid mistakes. He never had an impact on the match, which is surprising because usually in these matches, Sergei would be decisive. He would
He
win
hit the
the match
post.
for Lazio, right?
He hit the post at one point.
Yeah, but that was it. And again, it was, I mean, watching all the match, it was the only thing he did. And I think Empoli's goalkeeper was a little bit surprised. He didn't expect that. So, don't know.
Well, do you think this is perhaps somewhere where Sarri should take some criticism? Because he said after the game, and as far as I remember, he's already said it after the Lecce game, that Sergei and Vecino are both tired physically and mentally after the World Cup. I don't think this is an excuse for Lazio's performances because we only had two players at the World Cup anyway. But if that is the case and they are tired physically and mentally, then should he be playing them as much? You already said at the start that you didn't like Vecino when he came on. You've been critical of Sergei the last two games now. Do you think that he should just be, while those two guys recover, that Sarri should just be leaving them out? Because if you leave a player like Milinkovic Savic on the bench, I'm sure you're going to get more criticism than if you start him and he's tired, given what he can produce.
But you send a message to the team, that no one is unreplaceable. And again, if Milinkovic and Vecino play like that, I don't think Lazio's getting anything out of them. And again, Vecino came in, didn't play well. Again, I don't understand why Sarri put him in that position. For people who didn't see the match or didn't notice, he played instead of Cataldi, who came off. And so he played in Leva's position, playmaker, in front of our defense, which is a position Vecino can play, and he played with Lazio so far. But he normally plays in the other position, or close to Milinkovic Savic, or instead of Sergei. So again, that's a question mark because I didn't understand why Sarri put him there. But it's true that we don't have that many options, Alistair, there, because we have Marcos Antonio, we have Basic, who came in and didn't play that well. Can we start Bertini, the Primavera player? I think it's a risk. But if Sergei plays like that, then I don't know. Maybe um start Basic and make Sergei come in the last minutes and see how if playing only 20 minutes improve his performance, because like that is always a player. I mean, honestly, Luis Alberto played much better than the others, than Vecino, than Milinkovic Savic, etc. So
Yeah.
I mean, um, I think now we desperately need Luis Alberto more than this type of Milinkovic Savic.
Yeah, and I think that was a positive from yesterday, was that seeing Alberto come into the team after all the speculation and rumors about his future and whether he's going to be here next month or not, and he came into the team and made an impact. I thought he had a pretty good game in there. Yeah, and you know, there they were playing together again, which we've not seen as much as we probably would have expected at the start of the season, as both Milinkovic and Alberto starting together. And it worked. I think you know, although we can be critical of individual performances, as the team was functioning very well, as you said, for 85 minutes of this game. I don't know, maybe it's the way that with 5 substitutions now, so much can change in those final stages of matches as well. And I was thinking this watching the Milan Roma game last night as well, that you have so many opportunities as the coach of a team that's losing now. You have so many opportunities to try and mix things up at different stages of the game, where you try and make small changes to begin with to try and, you know, wrestle things back in your favor. Then if it gets to 5-10 minutes to go, you can start, you know, doing what Mourinho did and throw on Bellotti for Mancini, and you can really just go full on all out attack. So I think the 5 changes thing has really changed the way that games are concluding as well, because of both tactically and in terms of personnel.
Yes, but this leads me to another question. Lazio didn't make 5 changes, and I don't understand why. I mean, you brought in Basic, and that was it.
Because it can be so disruptive, though. That's what I think. You know, I think if you're the team that's winning, you have less need to be changing everything. I mean, I think especially a coach like Sarri, who's quite old school, really, and quite traditional, I think that he would not really see the benefit of changing half of his team when his team has been in control for 85 minutes. And he said he was even happy with the way they played after they conceded that goal. I don't think he's going to be wanting to go in and change everything. That's more up to the trailing team to make those changes.
Yes, but again, we weren't playing great anymore. So why don't make another change? I mean, we didn't need to bring out Luis Alberto immediately. I thought, again, Luis Alberto was probably the best player on the field. Empoli scored, and then you make a substitution. Why you bring Oli Basic? Maybe bring even Marcos Antonio and give some more boost to our midfield that was struggling. I don't know. Luca Romero was warming up. Maybe rest Felipe Anderson and give Luca Romero, that we know is a very young, but is one of the few players that comes in with the eye of the tiger. He always fight on every single ball he has. So I don't know. This is not the first time, Alistair, that happens, that Sarri doesn't do all the substitution we could do. For example, he brought in Isai for Lazzari. I thought Lazzari was playing well. Yes, he had a yellow card, but are we going back to Inzaghi's rule that if he gets a yellow card in the first half, you sub him? Because I think Lazzari was one of the reasons why Lazio had so many chances in the first half. Not playing him Isai for this match, but if you take off Lazzari, then I think you can even bring Marcos Antonio in, honestly.
Yeah, I think Lazzari's been one of the kind of consistently good players over the last 2 games. I thought his side did fairly well when he came on as well, to be honest. But Lazzari's suspended now for the next match, I think, after his yellow card. So
Yeah.
Usai is going to have to get some game time. But yeah, I mean, well, to kind of bring up a slightly different perspective rather than in-game changes, I do wonder if it's time to have a discussion about Providel, because I don't think he's done anything particularly wrong, terrible. There have been no clangers or anything. but he's not been the kind of super Providel who was saving everything at the start of the season. And, so I saw some blame directed towards him for the winning goal. I think it's probably a bit harsh given the speed it came at him and that came through bodies, but it was fairly central. But I think that question is starting to be raised a little bit more now. And it wouldn't normally, but I think it's only because there is this other goalkeeper, Maximiano, who's this great mystery man to us, was supposed to be the number one, started the season number one, lasted about 10 minutes, and then we've never seen him again. So what do you think about Provedel's recent form? And do you think it's time, maybe even in the Coppa Italia next week, to see Maximiano again?
Well, Coppa Italia definitely. Otherwise, there's something wrong there. But you mentioned the last games. I think about the Juventus game where Provedel, for me, made a bad mistake on the first goal of Juventus. So he's not as brilliant as at the beginning of the season. That's evident. Again, from the Distinti Nord, honestly, the second goal looked like it was something that Provedel could have stopped. Watching it back in TV, it's not that easy. But as you were mentioning, it wasn't impossible. Again, if we had Reina as a second chance, second option, I would have stick with Provedel. But as Maximiano came in, 11 million euro, considered one of the best goalkeeper at La Liga. Sarri said he's going to have his chances. He only played 6 minutes, made a mistake, and was done. I think he deserved to have another chance. Now, Sassuolo Lazio is not an easy match, but I think, everybody needs to be accountable. And Provedel took his chances. But again, as you were mentioning, he didn't do nothing incredibly wrong in the last couple of matches. But he wasn't as brilliant as we saw. And against Juventus, and even the game before Juventus, he wasn't perfect, far from perfect. So, yes, I mean, I would argue that if Maximiano doesn't play in the next couple of matches, then there's something there. There's something wrong.
Yeah, I think one final point from this game I'd want to bring up is that it made me, now that the January transfer market is open, it really did make me want to sign Parisi. I thought he had an excellent game. I've liked him whenever I've watched him, to be honest. But he's got great feet, very good kind of technical player as a left back. But he seems like he can really defend as well. I mean, it was him who made the tackle, I think, that launched the counter attack for their first goal as well. And he looks like a really handy player. And the thought of him on one side and Lazzari on the other marauding up the flanks is quite a nice one. You can see why Sarri's interested in him. So I'd love to see that deal happen. And we've been talking about it for a while, but I'm not sure if it will in January. I think it's probably wishful thinking.
I think it's very difficult in January. Very difficult. There have been so many rumors about Luis Alberto. I don't think he's leaving. And seeing how he's played yesterday, I would say that it would be a terrible mistake. But Alistair, yesterday, I was rewatching the match. And when you concede 2 goals, and Lazio is conceding a lot of goals lately, but then you watch the performance of Romagnoli and Casale, what can you blame them for? I mean, we conceded 2 goals, one from our corner kick and the other one from a corner kick from Empoli. Yes, you can argue that probably Romagnoli should have stayed in our half instead of going and try to score on our corner kick. But apart from that, they had a good performance. I mean, you were mentioning Caputo had just one chance in all the match. So it's bizarre, isn't it? Because usually you concede 2 goals, you said, well, our defense wasn't great. Can we say the same this time?
No, I mean, it's easy to in retrospect, isn't it? It's one of those things. The first thing that came to my mind when you said that is that I thought, well, I would like someone being on the kind of edge of the box to pick up those second balls, because having that much space it's not that unlikely that the corner is knocked out to someone at the edge of the box, and he had a bit too much space and time to hit it. But then again, if the ball's swung into the 6-yard box and it's headed in, we'd be saying, "Well, why haven't you packed the box full of players?" So yeah, no, it's definitely an element of bad luck to this. Look, there's certainly big causes for concern in the performance, the mentality, which again was like, yeah, wet tissue paper. But the all-round performance didn't really deserve a point, and let's hope that's what we see going forward. Because I think that Sarri is one bad result now away from serious pressure. I think you can get away with this as long as we return to form pretty quickly. But Sassuolo next won't be easy.
No.
They're in terrible form, actually, Sassuolo. They really haven't been playing very well for a while. They're not having a good season, but they do have good players, and they can hurt us. So,
And usually when they play against Lazio, it's like they're playing the Champions League final, right? So we know it's not going to be easy. So yeah, I mean, again, and this is the thing most annoying about this club, because how often did we say, okay, the next 4 or 5 matches are really easy for Lazio. We would be able to, win the next 4, and maybe who knows where we're going to be in the table. And then we play against Lecce away and we lose. We play against Empoli at home and we draw. This happened every single time, Alistair. Every single time. We watch our fixture and say, well, now that we have a couple of very easy matches, and we are not able to win those matches and boost confidence. This is really annoying. This is really disappointing.
Yeah. And going back to the kind of top 4 debate, whether it's possible or not, I think the only way it is possible now is really turning up in these big games that we've got left, because we're playing Milan soon, and that's the pressure that that's the pressure that you put on yourself by dropping points in these matches, is that it means you really have to be winning far more difficult games. And
let's not forget that the 24th we have Lazio Milan, the 29th we have Lazio Fiorentina, 2 difficult matches. Then we have in February Verona away, and then we have Lazio Atalanta, not an easy match at all. So we wasted a huge opportunity here. So, and then the Conference League come back, and we know it because Sarri said it time and time again that this team is not able to compete on 2 different competition when you play twice a week. So I fear we're going to lose points there. So it would have been very good to, grab these 2 wins and look confident at the future, which we cannot do it anymore.
No, well, hopefully by the next time we speak, we'll be feeling slightly more upbeat about things. And I guess if you're looking for a positive as well, that if this is going to happen, it happened on quite a good weekend, because, Inter dropped points against Monza, Milan and Roma took points off each other. We're yet to see what Atalanta do, but at least it's frustrating not to have kind of taken advantage of that by gaining points. But then again, we haven't really lost any ground. So that's something, Vittorio, it's something.
Yeah, you look the positive side. If you want to look the negative, we had a big chance to get points out of this matches. So yeah. Well, Alistair, I think we can wrap it up here. It's not a great start of the new year, right? But we hope things can improve going forward. Again, thanks for our listener, and we'll be back after Sassuolo Lazio. Very difficult match, a lunchtime match, this time for Lazio on Sunday. And please rate and review the podcast. And we're going to be back Monday. Thank you, Alistair.
Cheers.